Oh, hey. I was looking for him to unmute it, but actually, he's just so damn quick. Anyways, welcome everybody. Episode number 9 of the Deadpan Diaries. If you are new to this, and some people have asked what this is, it's a talk show about absolutely everything. And today's going to be an even bigger stretch of that because I'll get the introduction in a second here, but we're actually going to talk about a movie. So today's talk will be about the movie Endgame, of course, the conclusion to years and years and years of Marvel leading up to this final moment. I'll say it now. We'll say it before we say it then. It's in the title. It's in the title of the stream. It is spoilers. Do not watch this or listen to this if you have any intention of watching the movie if you haven't already, or if you just, for some reason, really don't care about finding out everything. That's cool. But we're going to spend an hour and a half or 2 hours if we really get going talking about the freaking movie. So that's your warning, okay? And I'll do it again, to be fair. But hey, I'm in control. That's Bronze Girl. We've done 9 episodes of this damn thing. And we've lately been joined a lot by Eric, and we like it. Eric, how are you doing?
Hey, everybody. I'm doing great. Thanks, Jeff. Hey, Bronze. Hi, chat. Hi, I'm super happy to be here. I watched unlike everyone else saw it opening night, I recently saw it. So I'm super excited to be here and talk about it.
Yeah, you said Monday, right? Like yesterday?
Yeah. Saw it Sunday night.
That's pretty dang cool. Eric just had a bunch of his tattoo done, and you tweeted that picture, right?
Oh, I did.
That is a really cool tattoo.
Thank you.
That shoulder right there, right? Come on. Yeah.
It's really hard to see in the camera from this way, but you just see me in person. It's really, really good.
Did you line in color at the same time?
No, I did all the line work and then took about a year to get all the coloration done.
Yeah, that's been my experience too. But there's some people I met, they're like, yeah, got done in a weekend. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you're not supposed to do that.
Right? I have no idea how people do this. Like it took my artist hours and hours just to get like a couple bit of the colors done. Yeah.
Yeah. My skin puffs up and stuff, and if they even tried, it would just be like literally slaughtering a pig or something like that. Speaking of slaughtering pigs, Bronze, how are you doing these days?
I'm doing good.
Yeah?
Doing good, yeah. Yeah. I just got back from a little trip out of town, and that's nice. Me. I'm really happy to be co-hosting this with you.
Yeah. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right, let's dive right into it. So there's not much. I just do it again because people are really, really sacred about this. But we're about to talk about Endgame, the Marvel movie. We're going to talk about everything, including a lot about the conclusion of it, because that's, of course, a big deal. The movie itself is a big conclusion. So that is it. That's your warning. And if you're not going to join us and you're like, nope, I haven't seen it, peace, I don't care, that's cool. We would totally respect that. But we think this was such a interesting, big topic, and Bronze she led on that she's fairly emotional about it.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
I'm letting the train just blast my face right now. I love it. But I don't have that's just one door open 20 feet behind me. You can see it over my head. If that's closed, it becomes like a hot box in here. So I'm just like, God dang it. Me and the bulldog and the computers just heating up space. Well, guys, I don't know where do you want to start? Eric, I can trust you to have your thoughts already aligned and ready to go. Where do you want to start with this movie?
Sure. Iron Man came out.
I'm gonna start.
Okay.
Fuck you, Eric. Go ahead, Bronze.
All right.
You know what? I said it years ago. Iron Man is not the strongest Avenger, but he's the best Avenger. In every single Avengers movie that has ever come out, he has been the center of the plot. And as an Iron Man fan, nothing makes me happier. This is his legacy. This is Robert Downey Jr.'s time. And you Captain America fans can go fucking eat an ass. Not my ass because you're not worthy, but some other ass because Iron Man is the greatest of all time. Suck it.
Okay, I'm not quite sure that's where we want to start, but thank you for that. I don't think that
that's where I
opens up a whole bunch of valuable discussion, but yeah.
Imagine this is at TwitchCon and you open questions to the audience, and that's the first question.
She walks up two-fisting wine bottles, like, hey, MJP's the best content producer. Fuck y'all. And we're like, oh, okay, who's that? This is Bronze Girl, bitch. And she walks over. Like, either that's going to go viral or she's going to get banned. I'm not sure which one. But okay, so you're a big fan of Iron Man. That's cool. I mean, we'll try to circle around back to that, but
yeah.
No, I mean, the entire thing started, I was going to say, in 2000, it's like 2009, 2008. I have no idea what time is anymore. 10 years plus?
Yeah.
11 years?
2008.
2008. Yeah. started with Iron Man, and that was the movie that blew everyone away. And like, I mean, besides Blade, like Iron Man is like the first movie was like, wow,
And Watchmen.
pretty good.
I think Watchmen came out before it, didn't it?
I think so. Yeah, you're right. So like, there's hey, comic book movies have promise, and yeah, and then by
Blade's
the
almost
end
not
of
even
this one,
considered a comic book movie though. Like a lot of people had to find out it was a comic book movie, whereas Iron Man, everyone knew, right? Like when that there's like that's
Sort of.
he's an Avenger.
What's weird is like, what's fascinating about this really is like, you know, jokes aside, this really is the end of an era, because when I first heard that they were making an Iron Man movie, my jaw dropped. Because as a longtime reader of comics, he was not the most popular Avenger. It was the Hulk by fucking far. Like, not even close, I don't even think. Like, it had to go Hulk, Thor, Captain America, then Iron Man. He was like not the headliner. Oh yeah, well, I just automatically block out the X-Men now because, you know. So I don't think anybody in their right mind thought that, you know, Iron Man would be the one to like kick it off. I think we had those weird movies, those weird Hulk movies.
Oh, with Edward Norton.
No, the one before that.
Yeah. Oh God, there's one.
There was one before that. I can't remember the dude's name. I guess it's not important. You know, it's not important. But there was 2 Iron Man movies that tanked. Then they did the one with Edward Norton that didn't do well either. Eric Bana, thank you. Yeah, they had the Eric Bana Hulk. They had the Edward Norton Hulk. Both of those did not do well. I want to say those were before like Marvel took over the whole, or Disney took over the whole Marvel thing and started doing their push. But Iron Man was not the most popular Avenger. And I think we have to give credit where credit is due. It was a combination of the movies and Robert Downey Jr. I think he was coming off of, he was just starting, his career was getting back on track. He was coming back from a rough spot. He was the underdog, and he embodied that character and sold it in a way that everybody could relate to it. And I don't think anybody else could be that much of a pompous asshole and be that lovable, because he rocketed Iron Man to like one of the back row Avengers to the front and center Avenger.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
And to your point, that ultimately, in my opinion, dictates the course of all the movies. Like if he is a less convincing Iron Man, and if people don't care as much, and if that movie doesn't do as well as it did, specifically the first one, by the way, because it was a huge success, but it was also the origin story done right. Whereas a lot of the origin stories before that were, you know, we've had Spider-Mans before that. We've had, like you said, Hulk. We've had some really bad origin stories, which is like the single track that these movies got locked onto as well. They're like, we have to introduce this character. And by golly, they find out they're powerful, and they just don't know what to do with it. And then right at the end, they kind of do, and then they beat up the bad guy, and they win. Which is what happens in all of them.
Yeah, and in some ways, like, the end of the movie did not shock me, because whether...
Well, it's canon.
For me, it was when he meets Howard Stark, I was like, he's dying. Because this is like his arc. Like, he has had dad issues since day one, which once again feeds back into like what we're talking about with like how well Robert Downey Jr. didn't just play Iron Man, but Tony Stark. Like, in my mind, he will always be Tony Stark the way Mark Hamill will always be the Joker. Like, I don't think anybody, I feel bad for anybody who has to take that role after him, because they will not, there can be another Iron Man. Like, they can put somebody else in the suit. There can't be another Tony Stark. He's the one. And he, like, it shows through like the first time he encounters Captain America, how there's almost like a sibling rivalry, because he feels like his dad loved Captain America, or was more proud of Captain America than he was of him. And how he feels like this like weird hero complex of wanting to be this person that would have like stood up to like his father's legacy, and how, you know, this drives him down a path of like almost insanity, like just chasing this fucking pipe dream. And that was the part for me where I started crying, is when he meets his dad, and that becomes full circle for him, where he's just like realizes that his dad loved him. And like the way he brought that to life on camera was so, it almost felt like authentic and heartfelt, that for me, like as a Tony Stark fan, I feel like we got the story we deserved, because we've seen him go through almost all of the stages of grief, from reliving his last memory with his parents in Civil War, to watching them die, to trying to be this perfect person, and save the world because he has to prove that he's every bit as much of a hero as Captain America, and he can be what his dad wanted him to be, to him meeting his father and realizing that his dad just wanted him to be happy. It's insane. It was very beautifully and emotionally thought out, in my opinion.
Oh my God. So I want to go back to the very first thing you said, because you see this all of the time now. When you mentioned how you knew Tony Stark was going to die when he met his father, because you basically are extrapolating on like the backstory and build up and everything like that. That happens in every show. Like everything does. I'm not saying Avengers shouldn't, or like shows shouldn't do that, but it's very telegraphed as soon as you begin to see that form. You always know that they were going to die, and so it's so funny because I looked at my partner Suzanne, and she did the exact same thing. She was looking at it, just like, oh, he's dead. It was exactly that moment. I'm just like, yeah. It's super easy to tell when you see it, and you're like, oh, yeah. But man, they executed it so perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They did a good job, and I enjoyed it. And for what the movie is, in my opinion, yeah, it's good. But like, I always do find what they spend time on very interesting, because there's a lot of time spent with, no, I will not do this mission. My daughter is the most important thing in the world. We're happy in this woods. We've abandoned everything. Like we're there. Into that night, he solves time travel. The next day, he's driving over to the place. He's like, no, I got to do it. And they have the conversation. They spend time with that, and I do appreciate that he goes from no, I won't do it, to yes, I will. The problem I have is it's like it's this like up and down with him. Obviously, it's ridiculous and it's accelerated so that you can do that. He solves time travel in one night. Like, come on. But like he also makes a point to be like, hey, just so you know, I'll go on this mission, but if it comes to it, I will choose my family. I will choose them, and I will not do this. I will get out of there. Into the final scene is literally Doctor Strange looking at him, holding up his finger, be like, yep. And then he goes, oh, okay, right. I'm dead. And it was powerful, and I loved the scene, but it was just all over the place a little bit. And it was also hard for me to get there, because they're talking about half of life across existence. We're not talking about billions. We're not talking about trillions. We're not talking about zillions. We're talking about a name we don't have. It's like Googleplex or Giggleplex or whatever. It's like, it's so laughable when someone says, I'll choose my daughter and wife for that. In order to actually, for that statement to even be remotely positively close to true, it's not love. It's insanity. It's the level of selfishness is evil. Like,
yeah,
you could not choose your daughter versus those numbers to the power, like dividing it by to the power of 100. Like our human brains can't even comprehend the number we're talking about. But this movie, and I get it, it's Marvel, but they're throwing around these numbers that are so ridiculous that if you're aware of them, it's hard for you emotionally to get there. For someone to be like, no, I'll choose my daughter. Captain should have punched him in the dick and be like, you know what you just said? You choosing your daughter over just Earthling daughters alone? What's that?
I think I don't think I took it that way. So first of all, I think it's implied that, and this is how I took that scene, where I don't think he solves time travel in one night. I think because I was like, it's laughable that Tony Stark wouldn't have already been working on this. And what I drew is, especially when his AI says the number, simulation number, it's like he's been working on this every night in the last 5 years. And he happens to strike on the magic formula the night that they ask him to do it. Which to me, it's like, it's very naive to think that Tony Stark wouldn't already be studying time travel, given that, like,
I would just have a nod towards it. I would say something like that. He's like, don't you think I've been working on that for 5 years?
Yeah, that would have probably made it more clear. I didn't pick up on it until he said, like, the AI says simulation number, and then she throws out some crazy number, and you realize, like, oh, so he's been running simulations on how time travel would work probably for years. And the reason he says no to these people is because at first it seems like they're trying to undo what has been done, and that would remove the past 5 years. Whereas he wants to make it very clear that he will get everybody back, but he's not going to undo the events of the past 5 years, which I think is an important distinction.
Yeah, fair enough.
But that's just what I took out of it. So to me, that's what he meant by, like, I'm choosing my daughter, is like, I'm not going to erase her by undoing the past 5 years. I'm going to bring everybody back, but she's not going away. She's staying.
Yeah. Okay. Incredibly. That's exactly how I read it. Like, I'm not super into like the nitpicky parts of that, because I mean, it's a comic book movie for me, and like the you know, what model number of the stuff, it's Tony Stark, right? So the thing for me though is that the first act of that movie, what makes it so solid, is that it's all about grief, and it's coming, like, how have we come to grips in 5 years for each of the characters, and you see them broken, and Tony Stark is one of the few people who's actually accepted and begun moving on. And then I don't know, it's like that's actually my biggest problem with the movie is those 5 years time, not the first act, but just the 5 years of all of this grief that's happened, and then you're just undoing it all. And it really should, I don't know, it kind of paints like how grief and handling loss can be kind of just like whitewashed away. It's almost like toxically positive, like surprise, we're good now, and everything's okay. It was very, very bizarre. So there was some disconnect there, but like the getting to that point didn't seem that far-fetched for me. Yeah, Tony Stark was probably working on it beforehand, and couldn't figure out which eigenvalue to pick to figure out with the Mobius strip model version, and then just stumbled upon it. Right?
Yeah,
it's fine.
Totally fair. I think that's more of my personal hang up with the genre in general. Like every movie kind of, and the bigger the movie, typically the bigger allowance they ask for you to grant them to just be like, let's get past that. They're just doing this. This one was like the most aggressive about that. Like there's almost every relationship, every connection, so it hung me up a little bit, but I can totally accept what you guys are saying. Along a similar vein, but another problem I had, and we'll get to the pause, don't worry. I really liked it, actually. I liked the movie, but I'm interested to hear you guys, because you kind of correct me on that, so that's good. I appreciate that. But like, Thanos, to me, was one of the best written villains I've ever seen, and I really enjoyed that, especially since it's such a simple platform, if you will, for a villain. He's just supposed to be pretty. But what I really, really enjoyed about the first half of this double movie, or whatever you want to call it, was Thanos' like, why he's doing this is gross, it's evil, but it like is supposed to make sense. It's supposed to be something where it's like, I'm doing this because I think this will actually save people, and I think this is actually how the universe should be corrected. So it makes it not compelling, obviously, but like, it's just cool. His character, he's like remorseful, he's sad. The scene with Gamora where he chucks her over to get the Soul Stone, fucking incredibly powerful, very cool. And the way they slow rolled that, and she's like realizing he actually does love her, and she's like, oh my god, like you actually love me like a daughter. Peace. Like these scenes are really impactful because of how cool these characters are. I did not really like that in this movie we get 12 words in 2 lines where he's just like, wow, you guys will always try to undo this. I guess what I'm going to do then is kill everyone forever and then remake the entire existence or half existence with people that don't have a memory of what happened. And then that's the explanation for why he's actually going to try to do it again. That seemed like, because he had, it's kind of, we're not going to get into Game of Thrones, but like, it's just, there's like all this build up and I'm following along, and then they're like, new plan. And I'm like, oh shit, that's breaking your character. The character is all about that.
Well, I've never liked his reasoning for it as much because like in the comics.
Yeah, you read them.
Yeah. So in the comics, he is in love with Death. And she keeps spurning his advances, like
she's
repeatedly.
In the Thor movie, which is kind of
literally,
yeah.
It's literally notice me, senpai.
Yeah, and so he's like, like, woman, like fucking bow to me. I have the fucking Infinity Gauntlet. I have the cosmos in my hand, and she's like, boy, bye. And he's like, I could wipe out half of existence with a fucking snap, and then he does it, and she still doesn't care.
Yeah.
So he's like, and that's why they call him the Mad Titan, because he's like, in the comics, he's a lot more, I almost like the movie version in its own way, because he's so much more sympathetic. Whereas in the comic version, he's like, bitch,
For love.
Which makes more sense for the crazy ass shit he does, because he's just like, he's the Mad Titan. He's a psycho. And it's awesome in its own way. And he's like full of hubris, and he feels like he's the best person to make all the best decisions. And clearly he's the only one who can wield this power, even though he's obsessed with one girl. And that's cool. But like from the context of like the movies, what didn't make sense to me, the same thing was like, well, then you'd have to go to every planet. And also, did you think that by wiping out half the universe, like the other half would just move on? Like, come on, you're not that dumb.
Yeah.
Like so far in the series, you've been so intelligent. Like, why all of a sudden would you be like, now I see the folly of my ways. If I wipe out half of existence, the other half can't get over it, and they'll keep trying to undo it. And I'm like, Thanos, you would have known that. Like, You're so fucking smart. You thought everybody else would be like, oh, well, this is life now. I guess, Eric and Jeff are gone, and I'll just do deadpan by myself. I guess I'll move on. Like, no, people would get fixated on how do I change that? That's it's common.
How many rebellions has he had to probably put down in his countless galaxies of people getting all uppity after he's conquered them? Like it happens all the time. Like this would have been like, no, I would also make them forget. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get super down this road because like, I don't like to nitpick and stuff like that. But yeah, Thanos didn't resonate with me at all ever. I saw him. I haven't read the comics, but I knew the difference in comics, and I knew that part. And I think that would have been much more preferred for me. I just my hang up. It's just a hang up. It's nothing like a big deal. But like, it's just only my hang up with the preeminent villain of the overarching 10 plus years. It's just that his thought pattern is so like enmeshed with like his goal is so enmeshed with his perceived concept of reality. When you have the Infinity Stones, it's like you could have just doubled the universe or made it as big as you want instead of halving. Like, what are you doing? Like, you could have fixed you could fix anything. You have the infinite, like, you are a god. What are you doing so constrained in this thought process that everything is still limited when you have limitless power in your hand? It's like, you didn't think of that?
And a lot of people said that. A lot of people were like, why would you halve the population when you could just double all the Earth's resources? And I was like, that's the problem when you totally remove death from the equation. And they already introduced like Hela and stuff. They could have just had him fall in love with Hela. Like it would have worked. Like that could have 100% have been the plot, is that he's hopelessly in love with Hela and she won't give him the time of day.
Yeah.
So he eliminates half of the world's population to impress her. Because if you have all of reality in your hand, exactly, that's your solution to world hunger, is to half the population. Like that's a Band-Aid. And then he destroys all the Infinity Gems because he's like, well, my job is done. It's like, right. But in like 20,000 years, people are going to repopulate and be right back where they were with the same limited resources. And if you're telling me, oh, well, he's not thinking that far in the future, it's Thanos. He should be thinking that far in the future.
Yeah, when you're dealing with the universal scale of things.
Of course he's thinking that far in the future. It's a Band-Aid. It doesn't even solve the problem because humanity is going to go down the same path. And now we have electricity and like modern medicine. And we don't have infant mortality like we used to. Women don't die in childbirth as much. Like we're going to go back to where we were even faster than we did the first time around. That's so dumb.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
So to be fair, years ago when they started to introduce like, and this is DC, but Superman and just these overpowered characters, the Hulk, that kind of stuff, the concern for me was always going to be that the power levels were going to get so ridiculous that you could never handle it. Moving a little bit away from this, I will say the way they handled all of these things I thought was really, really great. The movie, I went into it with like, I knew it was going to be a good movie. The other Avengers was fantastic. They're not my favorite kind of movies, but I'm entertained. I enjoy them. I come out of them talking about it. I think about it. And for a hero movie, that's elevated, because there's a lot of hero movies you go and see and you're like, these are just great. So I was floored and got really excited when in the opening scene, the emotional just the punch in the gut of Hawkeye playing with his family. You already know it's coming because we all do. And that to me was a fun camera trick and film trick that you don't expect in a hero movie, where you're like, we're going to show you a scene that is nothing but sad. You are not going to get a shot to the sun and he swears vengeance on things. You're going to show a man break. He's happy. He retired from the Avengers. His kids just disappear. And I actually even liked that they didn't show them turn to dust necessarily. You saw a couple of the like trails blowing in the wind, but for the most part, it literally was all about Hawkeye experiencing this moment in raw real time. Yeah. And then it cuts to Avengers and I was like, this is going to be different. This is a different story than just Thor swinging in and killing everybody, and it's great, and it's a big fuck you to Thanos for 3 hours. It was different. I was happy with that.
You're talking about really serious subject matter. I'm laughing because me and my buddy Vicken have an inside joke because we both put mayo on our hot dogs. And right before she got dusted, she was like, "Who puts mayo on a hot dog?" And then she gets zapped. I was like, maybe you shouldn't put mayo on your hot dog.
You're going to hell, but yeah.
I know.
It's great.
I'm going to hell. The way she says it, she has such a mouth on her. Like, who puts mayo on a lot of people do. A lot of people do, little girl.
Yeah.
Don't be so judgmental. Maybe that's why you weren't one of Thanos' chosen. Maybe he only likes people who put mayo on hot dogs.
Maybe.
Right. I completely agree with you, man. Like that, there was like no music there either. It's entirely, it's what it is. It's the easiest way to go back. When was the previous Avengers? When was the actual Part 1.
Oh,
Couple
3 years,
2 years
oh,
ago.
yeah. 2 years. Yes, 2 years
Right.
ago.
Like, I mean, with a snap of your finger, the stakes are set again. Like, you know, if you didn't watch that beforehand, like, the level of pain and stuff we're dealing with, and then that's when we get into it, right? It's it
Yeah.
was such a powerful way to be like, oh yeah, screw that guy, let's go.
Yeah. It gets you right back in the mood after a 2-year hiatus from it. It puts you right back where you want to be, which is like the gravity of like where the last movie ended. And what's crazy is like we're seeing that more and more in superhero movies, and I'm here for it. Like Watchmen did that. It has a lot of like really serious subject matter that they put in like a superhero packaging. And then we saw that with Logan.
Logan, oh my god.
Logan is a punch to the gut. And I was working in elder care like when I watched that movie, and I tear up when I think about it. Like watching Professor X grow old and deal with dementia and stuff is like watching your grandpa. Like I'm tearing up now, like because Patrick Stewart is like so beloved by all of us, and he is Professor X, and you don't ever like. It's just so sad. And who among us hasn't been there? Watching a loved one go through that is like one of the worst things you can ever go through.
Yep.
And so yeah, Logan like deals with a lot of like he is depressed. There is no other word for it. He's in a dark place. All of his friends have been systematically hunted down and killed, and you know, like most of them like destroyed after the event that they keep referencing where Professor X has that big seizure, and I guess that like kills a lot of the mutants. The rest of them have been tracked down and murdered, and he's just waiting for his dad to pass away, and he's going to shoot himself. Like that's literally where the film opens, is like basically he's going to go on a boat with his dad, and when his adopted dad basically, and when his dad dies, he's going to shoot himself. Like that is so dark for any superhero movie. Like a superhero movie doesn't have any business being that deep, and yet it does it, and it does it well.
It's like The Road, you know? Like it's brutally deconstruct. Yeah.
Get out of here. The Road. That movie, so depressing and dark. To be so depressing and dark.
Yeah.
Logan, I don't know. I cut you off. If you want to talk more about The Road, you can go ahead. We're on a bit of a tangent right now, but like...
No, it's totally fine. It's a deconstructed. It's the deconstruction of the superhero. Like how you mentioned, like previously, that's like the point of the Watchmen. Yeah, I think Logan probably does an even better job of it. And to see the gravity of the effects of the first Avengers movie, or excuse me, the previous Avengers movie play out in the first act is like exactly why I thought it was the strongest, because you see all of the heroes dealing with loss and grief. And pride, their own pride, humility, right? Just being completely humbled by their inability to fail. And to build on that, what would you think of the portrayal of Thor in a fat suit?
So
do you think that he was too comedic relief? Do you think it's believable? Do you think it's kind of fat shaming because he was comic relief? Like, where do y'all fall on that?
That is exactly where I was going to go. Because for me, and when Braun says Logan has all this impact and emotion, I 1000% agree. It's one of my favorite movies because it starts here. And it begrudgingly gets up and up, the partnership between him and X, and like the love that they start to kind of forge, but then tragically how that movie ends. It's believable, and it tugs at your heartstrings the entire way. Another movie that comes to mind is 310 to Yuma, the remake, and the original's very good, but like that too, very sad. There are moments of somewhat comedy, but for the most part, you have to keep a certain emotionality to get to the end and deliver that punch that for me, I cry every fucking time with that movie. The problem I had with this movie is exactly what Eric just said. It starts off with this mega sombering thing. We go to Black Widow is like crying into her sandwich because she's just dead inside running this thing. The guys are like, hey, I'm killing a bunch of Mexican gangsters and they're about to kill others. Like, what do you want me to do? And they're like, stop them, I guess. They're like, all right. It like has this depressing feeling. But then there's just these weird jumping back and forth moments. Like they kind of paint the world as really fucked up. There's crime lords killing everybody. Then there's this line about whales have re-inhabited the Hudson faster than you thought. So is that better? Are we trying to like make this weird argument the Earth is better? Whatever, that's a throwaway comment. The bigger thing for me is they go to Thor, and this should have been a scene of depressing. Like he feels so fucked up about what he did that he let go, and he let go of everything. But it ends up being
funny.
Shots of his stomach. He's drinking beer. Everything's funny. The two guys, the South Africans are on the couch. They're just comedy. And I'm like, well, this is fine. And I laughed, by the way. I'm not sitting there mad. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It is funny.
Just the
But
gamer tag's name.
yeah, all that, the Fortnite in the background, it's all funny, cool. But it destroyed it. The second that happened, I didn't feel bad for this world anymore. The scenes of like garbage and cars,
Yeah.
empty house, nah, it's fine. People are getting along. It's funny.
I can agree with that because in some ways, like I wasn't offended by anything per se, but I wasn't sure if it was the writing or Chris Hemsworth. He never at any point came across to me as depressed. Like, which they show flashes of it where he's like, don't talk about that, and like I chopped his head off. And like, but he never sold it to me. And I get that, like, oh, people that are depressed aren't always like,
But
"Oh,
we
I
don't
killed
say that
myself."
name part, kind of, to your point.
Like he tried to like deliver that, like, like I don't want to talk about that. And I miss my mom, but it never really came through. And I feel like after that conversation with his mom, that should have been like his big turnaround moment. And it kind of was, but he was already like, I don't know how to describe it. Like he was kind of, it never came across as much as it
Right.
could have, that like him letting himself go was because he didn't see the point in being Thor anymore. So he wasn't really going to be Thor anymore because he failed in his mission. I never got that from him.
Yeah.
I kind of just got like he was on vacation, and they even dressed him like he was on vacation.
Right.
And made
Yeah.
Big Lebowski jokes and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's to see it. Yeah, I think exactly what you were saying. Like how I think him seeing his mom was supposed to be the follow through, and now I totally need to go watch The Dark World again. But real quick, have we seen all of the movies?
Yeah.
Have all of us seen all of them?
Yeah.
None of them we missed. Okay.
That's all.
I don't think so. No.
All right. Yeah. So now I have to do that. Yeah. I just remember it not being. I
wasn't
remember. Yeah. But like I remember the scene in the Avengers or in Endgame when he met his mom, and yeah, it just felt like it's like okay, I get what you're doing with the scene, but I don't feel it. It doesn't resonate with me. And
Yeah.
that was kind of my gripe with a lot of the movie. But like I would still give that movie like a real like they followed the forms perfectly.
Yeah.
Like they did. It's like. How do you make 20-something movies and still have that ability to not feel fatigued?
It's
like that's
also
incredible.
It's a movie trying to make everyone happy because every single storyline was getting its light, and they actually kind of did. Like I come out of that and I just go like tip of the hat. Like I have my problems. There's things I didn't like, but overall, that movie was an impossible standard for itself, and it came as close as you can. So I was very happy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I didn't know how happy I was until 2 or 3 days later. I'm still thinking about scenes. I'm still feeling. I was still feeling stuff about stuff, and that's a hero movie. So they did an incredible job with what they could, and if they did anything less than that, it'd feel really weird, right? Because even with this being the case, there were still some storylines that were kind of silly in how they didn't get closed up.
And once again, I want to clarify, I don't necessarily think it was the way they approached Thor. I think it was either in the dialogue or his delivery, because like to just shed some light on this, I was that. Like there was definitely a period of time in my life where I was incredibly depressed and I did nothing except sit at home, drink Mountain Dew, and play World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
It was a really dark time. Like, and I don't feel like and I'm not saying, oh, everybody's case looks like mine. It's just, I don't feel like like that scene showed what I went through. And I'm telling you, like there was piles of Mountain Dew cans everywhere. And like, I did nothing but raid competitively. And it was the most depressed I've ever been in my whole life. Like I did nothing except play that game and drink Mountain Dew. So it's just kind of like the fact that he's just like, don't say that name. Then he goes back to doing what he's doing. It was just kind of weird to me.
Yeah.
Where I was like,
They tried to show so many of the different stages of grief for people, right? If Tony Stark exemplified acceptance, Thor exemplified denial.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like that's the entire point. I think is that he's trying to hide it so well, but the point is to the point where it's flat, where it's like okay.
And there's no pushback in him going to be an Avenger. Where I think like I agree with you that maybe Iron Man, they shouldn't have wasted as much time on him being like, listen, guys, this is my life now. They probably should have wasted more on Thor being like, I'm not really Thor anymore. I did my job. I chopped his head off, and it's like we got beer on the plane. I was like, okay. This is like kind of a serious moment, and you kind of turned it into a joke, but I think you did it too soon, because I don't feel like somebody in that who's just hanging out with their friends and is like totally blocked themselves off from the Asgardians, and because they failed in their mission, but they're trying to convince themselves that they succeeded. I couldn't see him getting on a plane for beer. And I get that it was like a throwaway line or a joke, but I'm like, seriously though, how'd you get him on that plane?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Because
so
I
much
wouldn't
like
put my pants on. I wouldn't put jeans on for that.
Yeah.
Like,
it was
you know?
it was such like subtextual, like that's him saying yes, but he's so in denial that he won't admit it. And no, you have to like, we can't actually ever express what we mean because he's so haughty and masculine about himself, you know, that we can never actually, and it's super weird.
Yeah.
But if to go back to Tony real quick, if there was one thing, it would have been awesome to really convey that shit when he goes to his daughter's playhouse outside and she's holding the Iron Man mask. How much resonant or how much more evocative would have felt if she was holding some sort of like you know, Spider-Man-y gadget, and that's when he realizes like, oh yeah, you know, like that's, you know, where'd you get that? It was in the garage, and it was a present for mom, but instead it's like, where did you get that kind of thing? And I don't know, like that would have been, and then go back to look at the picture, then the time machine thing, like that would resonate a little bit more, being like the kid that I didn't get to keep, kind of thing. But not to say like I know it's better in a movie than these people, because they've made over $1 billion in, you know,
many billions.
3 days.
Well, let me ask you guys this question, because this really bothered me, and please chat. We've got some great answers in there as well. And I honestly don't have an answer. Hulk, how they handled Hulk. So in the movie before this,
I was hoping you'd ask that.
he gets punched, he gets beat up. I personally write the lore in my head that the Hulk persona has like an identity crisis and won't come out because it just got defeated for the first time in like single combat and just is like, I'm useless. But then we get into this movie and it's just him. He's mastered the Hulk and now he has brains and bronze. There's no problem at all. They make one comment about the previous movie, but they don't really say much. They just are like, yeah, he's so strong, he could go toe to toe with me. But so now I need to have the brains and the brawn. And then that too was a joke. Every scene with him, it was a joke that the Hulk became this, right down to like they literally go back to the invasion of New York and he's like, ah. And again, it is funny. It's good writing. I laughed. But for a character, for a like, I'm supposed to feel this turmoil or whatever's happening, I didn't understand it. Can you guys explain it? Can anyone explain it?
I can't. Because for me, like if I were to say all the other stuff was like nitpicky stuff that I didn't notice until after I watched the movie, if that makes sense, because I loved it so much. My one complaint across this is honestly what they've done with the Hulk. Part of that is like I've read a lot of the Hulk comics. I've read Hulk vs. Thanos, World War Hulk. I've read a lot of Hulk stuff. So it's rough for me because when I envision like Dr. Banner, like the way they show that usually in the comics is he's sitting alone, like on a planet when the Hulk is taking over. And he's a very, like we were talking about, like superhero characters that are like humanized and like Logan and stuff. Like he's almost the epitomization of that. Like he is such a tortured character. And in Avengers 1, they fucking nailed it like so hard. Like how sad it is to be him.
Yeah.
How he's like, you know, I'm a fan of that thing you do where you turn into a big green rage monster, and like the grimace he makes on his face, and like Mark Ruffalo did such a good job acting that out. Like how the movie opens with him like just trying to be a doctor in India. Like he doesn't want to be an Avenger. He doesn't want to be a superhero. This is not him.
They trap him. Yeah.
They trap him like an animal and force him to do this. And how awful it is that he thinks he has more to offer than just smashing things, but they just want to see him smash things because it's useful. And how much that's been so prevalent through all the Avengers movies, how when they need him, they point him like a gun and fire him. And then they do not care about the rest, you know, like what's going to come out of that or the blowback from that. They deal with that after it's over. They're planning ways to literally drop him in a steel trap from a fucking airplane to murder him. But yet they're going to risk like turning him into the Hulk because that's how fucked up S.H.I.E.L.D. is. It does a really great job of showing that S.H.I.E.L.D. does not care about its superheroes. They don't give a flying fuck about any of the.
Speaking of fucking objectification. Oh, yeah.
What?
Oh, the fucking Soul Stone. Hulk, and how they don't care about people. Man, they just like, oh yeah, you had to kill another girl. All right, cool.
They get sad about that though.
They have a duel to see who can commit suicide
first. They literally fight for the right.
Yeah, but who is the creative final decision maker? It's not the characters. It's like it's not a good look. I don't know, killing another girl.
I think of women as equals, so I don't really care if there's a woman or like a boy that died. It's just another Avenger died.
I care. It's just a little weird.
There's so many female Avengers. It's not like they fridged the only one. In fact, we got that really cringy shot of all of the female Avengers in one go.
Yeah.
I had a problem with that scene too,
which
though.
was
so
awful.
tokenizing. It's
It was
extremely
so utterly
tokenizing.
terrible. Like,
It's
but
tokenizing, but literally it's and it's just the way it happens. But she fails. She's like, I can do it, and then she runs forward and then drops it. And it's
mhm.
like literally all the women together in one shot.
It was
and you're
so
like, oh, that's supposed
cringy.
to be cool.
It was so
and they're like,
cringy.
let's do it, and then they fail.
I bet you they'll sell a lot of posters and merchandise though. Which
Yeah.
is really the point of it.
I don't know. I was okay with them murdering another woman. I don't think. I think they're so. If it was the only female character, I would have like been like, But it made sense, like for her character especially. Like she really cares about him, and he has a family, and she herself says the Avengers are her family. So like he has more to live for, and I think that's why she fights to like the end. And in fact, she's the better fighter, and that's why she wins. Like so, to me, it's like she earns that right, and they brought Gamora back. So it's not like so you're totally off base with that one. I gotta say, like we lost
You
one
disagree.
female Avenger who like, yeah, I do disagree.
Okay. I mean, it's there's no like, whoa, you're wrong in the way you think. Like, you know what I mean? That doesn't.
There is. Just kidding.
Right? Like, yeah, I think it's totally cool to have a different opinion, and that's totally
Mhm.
awesome. You know.
Mhm. Well, a lot of people like said that the whole thing that happened with Gamora was like they used it as an example of fridging, and I was like, that's like a
I don't know what that
disservice
is.
to. So fridging is it happened in a Green Lantern comic, and it's when you murder a female as a way to inspire the male to do some
Oh.
great action.
That's called fridging.
So yeah. And it's because
Kill
the
the love
first
interest.
example of it, they murdered the main hero's love interest and put her in a fridge. So he opens the fridge door and his love is in there. And that's what inspires him to do great things. So it's
Damn.
usually called fridging when you needlessly murder somebody to try to inspire the man to do great things.
Okay.
Whereas I think saying that about Gamora was like a huge disservice to Gamora because she has had such a great story arc throughout the movies. And in that moment, what it is it's like her trying to fight fate, which is like she's the daughter of Thanos, in total denial that this monster loves her because he's not capable of love. And then him proving that he does, like, because
Yeah.
most of that movie was about their relationship. It would have been fridging if they invented a daughter and then he threw that in there. And
Well, I think what's interesting about this, I'm glad we're talking about it.
Mhm.
I think there are tropes, and I think I want to hear your thoughts on this, Eric, because to me, for some people, and I'm not lumping you in this category, but if anything even touches on a trope, it's inherently just wrong. I feel like it's more how you balance it or how it's used, right? Like it is an element of fridging, or it's an element of another woman dying in the scene, sure. But does that mean is in your perfect world no woman ever dies in any movie ever because they're women?
Fuck no.
So how do you
No,
handle it?
not
Like,
at all.
How would you have liked them to have handled it to be better? I guess.
Not exactly sure. However, I know that the way they did it this way made me feel that way. It definitely made me feel like, yeah, okay, killed the girl. All right. So everyone else could go. Makes sense.
I felt
Just
like they tried to write it that it wasn't that though, right? Like she struggled with him, he struggled to kill himself. There's even a scene of him like looking at her, being like, "It's me," and then she stops him. I felt like if it was just a like they like look at each other and he's like, "You must die because you're a bitch," and she's like, "I understand," and he chucks her over the cliff. That would have been really shitty, but instead it was like two warriors and they were kind of like, "No, I'm ready to die," and the other guy's like, "No, I've lost everything. I became a monster," and she's like, "No, you can still save your family. I have nothing."
Right.
And but that
I'm
was
not
interesting.
right. I probably wouldn't change it because I honestly, even though it makes me feel that way, I think the fact that it doesn't have to necessarily have that sort of effect on other people is totally fine too, right?
Mhm.
Like I think maybe just leaving it that way, even though it made me have that effect, is like, okay, well, sure, whatever, and just roll my eyes. There's plenty because the entire movie has like is full of little points for that for me, where it's like, okay, roll my eyes, but keep going, right? It's just part of the genre and tropes. Once again, we're dealing with the mishmash of like 20 something movies building up to this thing. How can I ever have the hubris to think that my version is, in my perception, my opinion is the right thing to do, right? It's just whatever.
I was
I'm
more
gonna
trying
get
to
some of
engage
what
in
I want and some of what I don't want.
the thought process of like if you had an idea of the better way to do it, just for the purpose of discussion, not necessarily you're wrong and I'm right, but more of a like for you to share. You had this reaction. I think that's interesting, but for me to be like, how can they do it differently? You need to be like, I don't think they can. I'd be like, well, it sounds like this is torsion made movie for you then, right? Like your balls are just always going to get twisted.
Maybe that scene does. Overall, I think Bronze made a pretty good, like a real good observation, being like, yeah, like they fought over it, they tried, and yeah, and she is the better one, and so she dies. It's just what reinforces that for me is not necessarily that in that individual scene, but the movie as a whole and how it sort of shows you. It does such a good job of showing you in like one sort of like cross section of something about what's going on, how they feel. For example, Thor and the denial thing, but it doesn't really resonate because the rest of the movie then is just like it doesn't necessarily connect. Like there's a lot of points in it where it just feels like it just gets disconnected and glossed over again, and let's go. Especially stuff with like the stones themselves, where
I know.
it's like
every time someone handled it,
yeah.
I was so
right?
pissed.
we spent all these movies like fighting about like the single power of one stone, let alone all of them five together, and then it's just kind of like flippant. It's like that's like a bunch of the eye rolly stuff where it's like, okay, cool, but once again, it's a movie. They got to get all this stuff in there. I understand that we can't be fighting over this one thing for the next hour, right? Like, so for me, there's so much of that where you just have to let it go. For example, like the gauntlet. Like the point of the gauntlet was like Asgard had to get destroyed first before even the gauntlet could made, but then Tony Stark makes one.
That's I mean, and that's like, I agree with you, but that's what's funny. Like they did as good as they possibly could to handle these power levels. The second the Iron Man suit got to micro, like it got to this level where it's just the suit has whatever it needs. Like it can do frost, it can do heat, it can do lasers, it can do charge, it can channel electricity. Like it's just doing all these things. The second I saw the gauntlet as well, it didn't bother me because it was like, it does everything. It does everything. That's just what it does.
That was my take on it too. It never even fazed me because I was like, well, yeah, Thanos would have to use material from a dying star, but this is Tony Stark. Okay, he's invented whole elements. He doesn't have to kill a planet to make a gauntlet. Okay, he can invent a new metal and make one in like a day. Thanos isn't no fucking Tony Stark. You kidding me? That was my take on it.
Yeah,
where I was just like, well, yeah, it's Tony fucking Stark. Like. Like some people are like, oh, we would need sheer diamonds to have conductivity at this level. And Tony Stark's like, I'm pretty sure I can invent something that'll be way cheaper to produce to do that, because he's Tony Stark.
Yeah.
The best Avenger.
But I think for all the reasons we're unpacking, I agree with everything we're saying, but like, it was funny. It was emotional at times. It was kind of, and I understand why they kind of had to jump around. The other thing you have to deal with here too is, like Eric just said, it's 20 like movies connected. So that would be, to me, the trump card to everything we're saying is like, why did it jump around all over the place? Because it had to. It's literally closing the knot on, 10 plus years of movies and all these different storylines. I thought and I'm continuously blown away by this. Thanos is completely CGI. There's like no human there at all, but it is fucking good. Yeah, and it makes every other movie look really weird to me because there's so many movies where I get hung up on the fact that I'm like, this is good. Like, for me, I'm one of the biggest Venom fans you could ever be in a bajillion years. And I like that movie because I have to, but it was such shit CGI by comparison. Like, it was distracting how much Venom was CGI and not actually Thanos. And again, someone's gonna be like, Jeff, the Avenger, the movies are $500 million. I know. I don't necessarily think the causality of like, if you have $200 million, you get that, and if you have only a 50 or 100 million, you only get that. I don't think it's $100 million CGI. Anyways, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because there's gonna be someone who's like, well, now let's talk about it. My point is, it was incredible. The CGI for Thanos was amazing. The fight cinematography, given that it's CGI and a mixture of people in CGI and green screen, but also real actual action, was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I loved the badass scene of Captain.
Can I stop you there real quick?
Go ahead.
Did any of you predict that Cap was getting Mjolnir?
Yes.
Yeah, it's in the canon.
It's happened in the comics. Okay. He's one of the worthy ones.
But it was fun to listen to the audience not know that's coming and to see their reaction. And the movie did a good job making that badass. Punk catches it, and you're like, oh shit, and he pulls it in. And they've done such a good job of this, he fights with the shield, you guys. So like, in the comics, he zips it around, and that's cool. But the movies elevated that, and they did that in like the Iron Man, Winter Soldier, and Cap fight, which was just amazing. It's very underrated how good that choreography is. And they did it again here, where now he's using a hammer to like nail it down to the ground, bounce back, catch it, throw it, use the hammer to like deflect it. The stuff they did, it only took seconds. Like they didn't spend 10 minutes showing in slow motion the shield or something like that. I loved it. It made people feel badass. It made them feel powerful. And it was really cool. I love that aspect of the movie. The fight scenes were incredible.
Yeah. When I saw the hammer moving, I was like, can't be Thor. It's either Captain America or Beta Ray Bill. And I have a feeling a horse ain't coming out of space for this one. So it's
Beta
gotta be
Ray
Cap.
Bill. I did like Thor dual wielding was badass too. And they double fought too, right? Like Thor and Cap would like flip the weapons together. They even made a joke, and this is my kind of joke for the heroes, where he's like, no, give me the hammer. And he's like, no, give me the axe. You know, like they're kind of joking about which one was going to be better for them.
Yeah. What's funny is I know people are going to be like, lol, Braun thought it was Beta Ray. There was a Beta Ray Bill reference in the last Thor movie in Ragnarok. So it was only a split second. I'm pretty sure that's him, but they show like the Coliseum of Champions, and one of them is a horse face. So I'm assuming it's Beta Ray Bill. So I was like, who knows? Who knows? Maybe Beta Ray showed up and was like, my planet was destroyed too. Also, give me that hammer. It would have been cool, but I think the audience would have been like, what the fuck just happened? So it was like 10% in the back of my mind.
Do I have it wrong that Stormbreaker is supposed to literally be Mjolnir as well? Like it's their mirror weapons, right? Or no?
I thought that was the case, but I know the comics are so different than the movie.
Maybe someone in the chat knows, but then it did make me feel a little bit weird when Thanos starts handling the axe, because they specifically show him not be able to handle the hammer in the comics and stuff. But
yeah,
he grabs the axe just fine.
I mean, yeah, I figured Thanos' sword is made out of the same stuff. So I just didn't really even.
Yeah, fucking Thanos. He destroyed the shield, dude.
Yeah,
that was cool too with his sword, which is.
He's so strong. Like that part is so cool. It's so like, because you're just like, oh, this is awesome. And you still see them losing. And you're like, oh my God, they literally cannot beat him without the gauntlet. That was my favorite part. Like they can't win. All of them together still do not stand against him alone. Like
I
he's
loved
just
it.
that strong. It's so good. Because it's awesome to see your heroes like come together and like have these amazing things happen. But then watching them get beat into pulp is almost harder.
Yeah.
Because you're like, wait, but he's got a hammer and and you watch him like fucking just beat him to death. And you're like,
what
the
cinematography of it, going back to, I cut Jeff off. It was so good. It felt like the beginning of Kurosawa duel or a Western. It's a shot of like mostly the ground and use the footsteps going towards it. The guy in the, Thanos in the background, just like ready for it, like waiting, like not even like stretching, ready to go, just confidently like waiting around and then having that sort of conversation. It felt extremely like a samurai duel or like a Western duel. It had all of those strong elements, and it just pulled through so well. And
they made him the final boss, which there's a very great, fantastic show going on right now that could have borrowed a lot of inspiration from that. But like even the scene when he teleports in, walks out, sets his Darth Maul sword or whatever down, his helmet, sits, and then they're like, he goes, go get me the gauntlet. And they're like, what are you gonna do? He goes, wait. He just sits there, and he's the Thanos character. He's not sitting mega proud and infinitely confident. He's sitting there depressed. He's like, fuck it, man. I'm here. I have to do what I gotta do.
And those are the threats.
No, not at all. It's a power move. It's you come to me.
It was like
I don't disagree, but I'm just saying he's showing depth in his character. Other movies, that character is standing at the highest peak, golden white, and he's like, aha, I'm here. Instead, he was sitting in the middle of the field by himself.
I think like there was like a couple of, like you said, for how vast this was, like the legacy of like 20 movies, there's so much they couldn't have done, but it made me sad that the roster was so bloated because of that. Because like part of it is like when he says like, oh, bring it to me, it shows like just how much he's groomed like his team and how scary the Twilight, like the Obsidian Call is, like the Black Order. They're fucking terrifying in the books. Like they're just all of them, Corvus Glaive and just Proxima Midnight, they're Black Dwarf, they're badasses. And you see them going toe to toe with the motherfucking Avengers. Ebony Maw's my favorite. But you see them like squaring off like 2v1 and winning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's almost like he's tired when he sits down. Like, I'm so fucking tired of these peasants, you know? And
Yeah.
he's just like, go get him for me. It's like confidence, upset that he lost to these plebeians almost, like, because he technically did. And now he's rectifying that
Yeah.
mistake. And also it's like to show like, that's how much faith he has in the Black Order. Like, he's just like, oh yeah, they've got this.
Do you?
Like, you're not
Yeah.
even worthy to face
No.
off against my 5
Ah.
generals because you're garbage, you
Oh,
know, like
shit.
not even
You
worth
know what?
dirtying my hands with.
You just made me think of something. But going back to like something Jeff said earlier about how he changes his plans and stuff like that. Do you think him seeing his head get cut off like really was like that was the impetus move, like his hubris of like his death? Because you just made me think of that, Bronze.
Yeah,
Like,
probably a
like
little
that's it.
bit.
He's like, all right, here we go again. He's
Yeah.
like, all right, fucking invent time travel. Let's go. Black Order, figure out how to do how they did it. We're doing it. We're going to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was partially like him, like he views them as ants, and he makes that so clear.
Right.
And when you
They
see
kind
the
of are, which is cool.
Yeah, the ease with which he beats them, you're like, oh no, he has every right to be an arrogant bastard because he can beat them. 5v1, he can beat them. His generals can 2v1 any of the Avengers, and it's kind of scary, like how badass his generals are. And that was the one, like, and I'm not complaining because I get that it's like a big movie. It was 3 hours long. They still couldn't get everything. There's 2 things. I would have liked a little bit more Black Order. I would have liked to see them throw down again, because watching them whoop the Avengers' ass is like some of my favorite.
Yeah.
I feel like the Avengers should have had the chance to beat them. Like, I just really would have liked that. Instead of them getting dusted, just them having that little redemption arc of like, okay, we got you this time, you know? And the other thing is, like, in the comics, Drax pulls out Thanos' heart. He rips it out of his chest.
Yeah, he's always the one who was going to kill him. Right?
Like his whole arc was killing Thanos, and he didn't even touch him. And I was like, he was motivated by hatred, by revenge. Like he's a seething rage monster, but they turned him into so much of a comedic relief. He doesn't even touch Thanos. Like they don't even show them. And I was like, but his daughter and his wife, he deserved to at least like look him in the eye and be like, do you remember me, you fucking bitch? Like just something.
There was so much fan service. There was so much fan service in this movie, unless you're a Guardians fan.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
And I guess it's because they're coming out with a Guardians movie, but like this is Drax's only chance.
Yeah. They could have cut out so much more.
Get his satisfaction. And they didn't give him his satisfaction. Like he never gets to even say anything to him.
And you know what? Right. To me, that it's a very interesting to pull it back, because the only reason that's the case is because, understandably, this movie is dictated by the success of the stars. So Thor's movies weren't very good until Thor Ragnarok, and then it was one of the most successful, one of the best. But I still think the Thor character was so compelling. Chris Hemsworth's a big deal that it was always going to be Thor. Robert Downey Jr.'s entire career became Iron Man. People don't know about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, by the way. Go out and fucking watch that movie. It's one of the best movies you can ever watch. People don't know about him coming back to Ally McBeal and making that show actually quite good. I know. I'm that weird guy that watched that show back in the day. What's that?
Chaplin.
I don't know what that is. I assume it's great.
Oh, though. Robert Downey Jr. played Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, yeah. I don't watch bad movies. I'm just kidding. I'm sure there's a lot of old people who love Charlie Chaplin. He's just amazing, right? And he became, much like Hugh Jackman is Wolverine, and I cannot picture anybody else playing Wolverine. And actually, our current Spider-Man, I can't really picture anybody else playing Spider-Man, because he, to me, is the rip out of the comic. That's Spider-Man. So we have these like incredible personifications. Drax, like Eric said, is funny, and his story in the comics is bigger than his character is. So it was never going to be that case. Like they do touch on the movie where he's like, yeah, I'm going to kill Thanos because he killed my family. And it's like, it's actually in the lore, like his knives are some of the only weapons in the galaxy that can actually kill Thanos. They straight up can. That's really cool. That's amazing. But there's no movie. There's no movie in Endgame where it's Drax that jumps on his back and drops a knife into his hand, stabs in his stomach, or anything like that. It's instead always going to be the big star. And then we started the show with that.
That's why I was talking about how I felt like the roster is so bloated. And I have like pretty hot takes on that. Like, I don't think Mantis needs to be in the movies. And I'm just going to say it. I think Captain Marvel didn't need to be in the movie. They went out of their way to hype up her arrival. She was in it for
Yes.
all of 3 minutes. She doesn't have any connection to Thanos. She doesn't have any major, like, why does she care about Thanos? She
Yes.
hasn't even been on Earth while Thanos was like, she has no investment in this plot. And that's okay. She doesn't have to be in the movie. But they literally like hyped it up. Like,
And they
she's
nerfed
going to
her
be
over
here.
and over
She's
again. And
going to
this
be
is what
here.
this movie
She's going to
does.
be here. She's going to, and then, Thanos whoops her ass in 2 seconds and the movie goes on. And it's just like, why did she even need to be in there? It almost like took away from it because they hyped up her arrival. She was a very small part of the film. And I'm telling you, go back and watch that. If you remove all her parts, it changes nothing. That time could have been freed up for something else. When you have a film where there was so clearly cuts made, they could have just cut her out and said Captain Marvel happens like after the events of this or something, or she was gone off planet while this was happening. She even says like, what happened here happened on every universe. Maybe she never even comes back to Earth because she's too busy helping all these other planets with their problems because they don't have
that's what
Avengers.
Thanos
She even
is, though.
says that, right?
Be kind of weird.
God.
Yeah.
It would have been, no, we could have thrown that time with some more reuniting of fucking Rocket Raccoon with the rest of the Guardians. I would have loved to have seen that. Like he like slaps Thor and is like, man, what about my friends and stuff like that? And we don't ever, that never goes anywhere.
Yeah.
I know you can't fit everything in the movie, but like if we can just cut out that and it's what the idea of friends and found family being just as important as the rest of your family would have been a really nice little like thing there. Right? I don't know. I would have cried at that. The rest of the movie did not make me cry, but that would have definitely done it for me.
Yeah. And it's once again those moments of like us, we're going to devote 5 minutes to Captain Marvel, but none to Rocket seeing Peter Quill and everyone again for the first time.
Right?
Weird choice there.
Could have been a very emotional scene too, because he's always so. You can tell in the movies, obviously, he loves the crap out of him, but they have that. He's like an angry little creature, and they have that kind of a bad relationship. But in the end, they love each other. It's supposed to be like the dysfunctional family. This is them literally coming back to life, and there's no scene at all of
Yeah, there's no scene of it. It's when I point it out, you're like, oh yeah, that maybe. Hopefully, it doesn't sound like I'm complaining, right? Hopefully, it doesn't come off that way. But like, it seems kind of weird when they're in so many movies. It's not, it's not just one Captain Marvel movie or anything like. It's they've been in like 4 movies now, with the Avengers and stuff. So it's like, or I guess like nice.
They're lucky some of these guys are really good actors and actresses too. Like because Paul Rudd had about a minute and a half to show what it looks like to see your daughter after not having her, and she's now a bigger person, and then to meet the love of your life and see her after, he was time traveling. He was gone. Anyways, I thought he conveyed that really nicely. He's a great actor. Yeah. I love that guy, but
definitely.
But that was the kind of funny thing about the movie too, right? Like there's a whole bunch of these scenes. I'm going to come out and say it, so we'll move towards the end a little bit here. But like for me, the scene where Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man, literally, he's Thanos, Josh Brolin, I am inevitable, and he says, "Yeah, well, I am the Iron Man." Like shivers. There's no human on Earth that doesn't feel how cool that moment is as the gauntlet's closing. But then it was like charred, stylish, hot old man Robert Downey Jr. dying against the tree, and I'm nitpicking, and I know you hate that, Eric. I know, but for me, this scene could have just been quiet, no words, everyone cries, and that's amazing. Instead, it was like some people had their time, and it was like Spider-Man was first, and that was cool, but then he steps away for Potts, the love of his life and his wife, and she's just kind of like joking about it a little bit. She's like, yeah, she's like,
I'm gonna say I don't like Gwyneth Paltrow as an actress. I don't. And when she's like, you can rest now. I was like, I don't know if it's because I've listened to her group podcast just out of morbid curiosity. I think she's a fucking weirdo. And now I think I see that in like all of her roles. Like I just hear her being like, today we have on Dr. blah, blah, blah. And we're going to talk about why you shouldn't eat canned cheese. Like maybe that's what it is. Like, because she's such a fucking weirdo. Like she's so bougie and out of touch. And there's not a thing about that woman that I like. But it also comes across in like her weird, like kind of doe-eyed, like the way she acts. Like, and in that scene, you don't see like a wife losing a husband and the father of her child. Yeah. You see her being like, it's okay. You can rest now. God knows the radiation from the Infinity Stones is really bad for you anyway. It's probably best to limit your exposure. Like I just can't fucking get, like, I can't handle her.
It's, you
Like,
know
I
what?
just don't like her. And
It's
I'm just
this
going to say that I don't like her.
bad mismatch of like Robert Downey Jr.'s and like a once in a lifetime incredible actor portraying a bigger than life character, and Gwyneth Paltrow's character. They have this tempo throughout the movies of her being like, you're addicted to this. You don't need to sacrifice yourself for people. I love you. You love, and like the scene where he's talking to the helmet and he's like making a recording as he's dying. It's insane how powerful these scenes are, and it's like sad. It's like if you've ever had to leave someone or move on and stuff like that, it's like really fucking emotional. And then they play the projection after his funeral later. This is after that scene, but that too is like heart wrenching. It's his daughter watching her living dad give the speech. Was like, I might be dead, but maybe I'm not. Maybe it went okay. Anyways, here's an uplifting, amazing thing to say. So there's all these powerful scenes, but literally the scene of his death and his eyes, they lose light. He actually dies in the scene. It's cluttered with this weird, like, even if you just leave it the Spider-Man hug, that's a big deal because they made that feel bad. They made that feel emotional. Then Gwyneth Paltrow kneels over and she's like, just go to sleep, dude. You've done a lot. And he's like, yeah, you're right. And I'm like, whoa! I was like, I've seen a lot of death scenes. This is one of the worst.
The scene went on too long. I would have liked to have seen, like, I know this is like dark, but I'm like sadistic like that. I would have liked to have seen Peter Parker sobbing over his body and the other Avengers pulling him off. I think that would have broken me. I think like Gwyneth like walking away like, this is the shit I didn't want to happen. Why does it always have to be my husband? And the other Avengers pulling him off while he clutched to his corpse. Sure. It would have been like a Dark Phoenix saga cover. I think we all would have been like, oh God, that child. Because I cried during his part. And he's like, Mr. Stark. But I did not cry during her part. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
I was kind of embarrassed for them a little bit. It was just a silly scene. Because even correct me if I'm wrong, like he actually doesn't say much either, right? He's just kind of like looking at them.
Yeah, he can't.
He
can't really talk. He's like clearly
so even
like
the writing
dying.
For that's weird. It's kind of like either he's dead and they're mourning over his body, or if he's dying, have someone say one final thing to him, and that's got to be a big ass line, or he says something. But it was all so middle of the road. He's like. It's like looking around, and the Spider-Man thing was awesome, but then Gwyneth, like I said, she just comes over, and I'm like, oh. And then it changes scene. I was like, wow, okay. I would have spent a week on that scene. I would have done 100 takes, and I would have come up with that's Iron Man dying. It's literally him saying goodbye.
Powerful scene ever.
You're not going to get Robert Downey Jr. on the screen ever again as Iron Man. That's it, people. Come to grips with that.
And that's why I think it should have ended with Spider-Man, because I think like the tempo of the movie, the last two movies, was like him losing a kid.
Yeah.
And even in Homecoming, like when he's like, well, if you care, you'd be here. And the way Tony Stark steps out of the suit. I remember like I audibly gasped in the movie theater when he's like, yeah, well, if you cared. And when he actually steps out of the suit, like it's not a remote controlled suit. I was like, oh, like because I wasn't expecting that, you know? Yeah. And like and he's like, I'm worried about you. And if you die, it's going to be on my watch. And how like seriously he takes his role. He is this kid's fucking dad, you know? And when he says like, I lost the kid, like how sad that is when he breaks that news to the other Avengers that he lost the kid, and how he's like, he's not ready to really deal with that, and how he lost the kid on his watch.
Yep.
And when Captain's like, well, we could beat him. He's like, no, we lost. And he's like, well, you fought him. He's like, it wasn't a fucking fight. Because, you know, the way he's so destroyed at that point in time, he's literally emaciated, which is hard to see. Emaciated, mentally destroyed, emotionally destroyed at that point in time. And so that relationship was more powerful than anything we've gotten between Pepper and him on screen.
Right? Exactly. Like,
and I think that's where the disconnect is, because the scene hits this peak and then it goes on into the Gwyneth Paltrow part, because like it's not even his fault. I don't even want to say it's her fault. Even when they're sitting and she's like, yeah, I know you're going to go back in time. She always seems so aloof in her scenes.
Yeah.
Whereas he's like, by the way, I solved time travel. Like her reaction to that is always just so like, that's nice. I always kind of thought you would. I always tell you to stop, but you do it anyway. Like there's no like, it should have gone one or the other way, where she's like, you know, we were lucky. We fucking survived. Like, I'm not going to fucking lose you. I'm not going to raise my daughter as a single mom. Like either that, or just like defeat of like, yeah, no, you're gonna do it anyway, so fucking go and do it. Not like, that's nice, honey. Like I get that you're like really smart and you solve like time travel and stuff. I guess like go
Yeah.
do it or whatever. Like she's just so aloof in all of her scenes.
Yeah, it was very it was very jarring for me for that too.
But I still cried because I love Iron Man.
Oh, it was amazing. It was
My
still
favorite.
great. And from there's some people say it went a little bit too long, but again, for me, that's the movie. There's just no way that you can end it succinctly. It has to go on. Just to tie this up and draw us to a close here a little bit, Captain America signs off. I thought that was beautiful the way they did it. It was a little bit. It's interesting because I believe the lore is he dies and the mantle gets passed on. But in this, I thought it was really beautiful because one of the good consistent storylines, because Captain America does not pound like 17 girls throughout the movies. It's like this hot thing. He's just got love for one woman. It's very old school, but that's like his
Mhm.
character. And there's always the scene of the locket. Then there's the funny scene where he's like fighting himself in the past, and he's like, "Where'd you get that locket?" And anyways, I thought they did a really cool job of revealing that he was gone for 15 seconds, but he actually lived out an entire lifetime and got to experience what he wanted. In all the movies with Captain America, that's all what he talks about is that he wants to fight for a world where he can go back and just like live as a normal person. And I thought that was really cool. The Thor one was more interesting. Also in canon, the mantle moves on as well, and then current Thor is a female, actually, I believe. But even where
Mhm.
this came from, can't remember who took on the mantle, but the Thor thing moves around, and this was an interesting retirement because for me, well, it wasn't a retirement, right? Because then we later get the scene of him with Guardians of the Galaxy, so presumably that's going to be the combo for the next movie. Is he's on their ship and they'll make a big joke about how he's not fat anymore and he'll be shirtless and we'll be all happy again. But that was interesting, right? How do you guys feel about those two plot lines getting tied up?
I loved Caps.
Hated it.
Hated it.
Really?
Yeah, it seems really weird for Captain America. It's not that I don't want him to have nice things. I think he totally deserved that stuff. But like, could you imagine Captain America after living in 2019, going in the 50s and being okay with everything and like somehow being okay with a normal life? It just does. I don't see how he could ever actually have that.
He was always a small town boy.
I think the only way I can get there, Eric, because I can see where you're going with this, but it's because he's aware that he's going back in time after they've done everything right, and he's like, well, if I live out my life here, that's not going to have an impact on the future. They made it very explicitly clear that doesn't change the future. So he's just enjoying. He knows that he's served his purpose and is going back to do that thing.
Mhm.
It's as good as it gets.
I don't see how like 1950s and calling him to help with like the Korean War and like everything. I don't see him being able to walk like how other people would let him walk away the same way like Shield like owns everybody. I don't know. I don't see how he could ever like his heart is so true and like there is injustice out there. And like I don't know if he could it just seems so weird to see him do a selfish thing. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. Right?
Yeah.
He absolutely deserve it. And maybe that's why it's so hard for me to see that is because that guy is the embodiment of like he is better than
He's America's ass.
Here's my point of view on that. I think like the reason I used to hate Captain America and I used to hate Chris Evans as Captain America
Really?
in the movies. Like I used to hate them because it was always so fucking perfect. And then I realized that's his job.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
to be the perfect foil to Tony Stark.
Yes.
Like the perfect, like where Tony Stark is very human and like is prone to like realizing flaws and things. Like, how do we know if we're making the right choice? Clearly we need oversight, right? And him being like, well no, like it's not that Tony Stark doesn't think he's the smartest person. It's that like he doesn't have that disgusting self-assurance, like confidence, we got this, that Captain America does. And he's more of a human being. To me, this was the fact that of all the things that Tony said, finally something fucking stuck for Captain America. And that was Tony telling him, make sure you make time for your own life at some point. I think that was my takeaway from it, was that this was him finally, like, as Tony's basically like dying wish, listening to what he said about living some of his own life before he died. And I think it took him watching Tony die to realize that maybe it was his duty to live the life that Tony didn't get to, because he gave his life up. That was my takeaway from it. that he was going to do what Tony Stark said, because they like a lot of this movie was also them healing their broken, disgustingly fractured relationship, rebuilding that trust. When they go back in time together, when he's like, this day, he's like, all right, like the blind faith, the leap of faith of like, we could be trapped in the 40s, whatever. I trust this man. Like that blind leap that Ant-Man is not there yet, but those two have this sacred connection. To me, it was that like he took this last wish of Tony for him to have a normal life, to be able to finally put this perfect side of him aside and do something for himself.
Right.
That's what I took it as. Logistically, I was having a nightmare because I was like, I don't think Anthony Mackie can like sell a Captain America film. That was my own thing. I was like, he's not my favorite Falcon. I have to be totally honest. He's not my favorite actor. I think he does okay as Falcon. I would have rather have him give the shield to Bucky. I'm being honest.
As it goes to Bucky.
I think that Bucky would have been able to headline a movie. I don't think Anthony Mackie can do it. So my brain immediately was like, well, we're never getting a Captain America movie again. That was literally where my brain went as soon as that happened, where I was like, I don't think Anthony Mackie can put butts in seats. And I think like once again, so it's the Paltrow syndrome. I never saw any connection between Anthony Mackie and Chris Evans on screen the way I saw it between like Bucky and Cap.
And they worked so hard to make that connection. He's always talking about the two of them. They did a whole movie where the premise is that Cap believes so strongly that Bucky is innocent and needs saving that he goes against Tony Stark and everybody else. Like, come on.
He chooses when he's like, he's my friend. And Tony says like, I was too, you know, like they spend all this time developing that like deep relationship. To have him toss it to the Falcon is so weird because we never saw that like bonding. Like there was never a point where those two, where he would give, like, think about this. This is him like, I have to entrust the world to someone else. Am I going to give it to my battle buddy, my friend, somebody I've bled for, Bucky, or this random dude I met a couple years ago?
Not too random.
Right, running around DC's mall. Yeah, it just seems so... Yeah, I did the exact same thing in the theater. I was like, what? Not Bucky? What? Yeah, it's...
If they were going to do that, they need to develop that relationship more, because there's just not a lot of chemistry between Falcon and Cap.
Yeah.
Or have a scene where Bucky turns it down. Something.
Right. I don't know. So just real quick, because you made me definitely you smoothed the landing there for Cap's ending for me a lot. And you really pointed out something to me, how going back to like Iron Man not being the best adventure, right? Or like the truest or whatever, but your favorite. I totally see a connection now between like the foil between Captain America and Iron Man, not so much even just being like ideological parts of, for Civil War, not to go down that road, but more that Iron Man has the potential to be Captain America, but he has his own hubris, is like, he's like fighting himself all the time. And that conflict within himself of his ego and his ideals, and he can see just Captain America just marry that perfectly and just be a single thing rather than like two magnetic polar opposites. There's this total alignment in Captain America, and he just hates it for it. Like he can see that he could do that, and he sees why his dad liked him. It all like builds in together, and to see. Yeah, I don't know. And then to see Captain America kind of get rid of the mantle, like it is a mantle and not actually who he is as a person, is probably, maybe that was the part that I didn't have, like watching all these movies. I could not see him not having it. Like that is his mind, his heart, his soul, all in one singular alignment of that. And it's just the serum is what makes him super strong. But like, I don't know, maybe
he's America.
Yeah.
So. I get it. Yeah.
But I don't know. It's
interesting. I'm I'm more optimistic, I guess, a little bit, but I'm not excited which is, I guess, proof positive enough for you. Like, if you would have handed it to Bucky, I would have been like, fuck yeah, dude, robot arm and a shield, redemption story. This guy like came back and fought in the end. That'd be really cool. Falcon, I was like,
right.
It's a Arrested Development reference. Where do we go from here, though? Like, does this movie have you excited about? Because we have a Black Widow movie coming out, another Spider-Man. We know that they're making a Guardians of the Galaxy. I think one of the funny things they're going to have to kind of look at is, and it's obviously when I say they're not going to, but is there an exhaustion here? This is a pretty big emotional buildup. What's the next thing that I get excited about in this universe? What what story do they touch on next? You can't go bigger than Thanos, but you can't. I know you can. You just shouldn't. DC
They have X-Men now.
crossover. What's gonna happen?
They have X-Men.
Yeah.
X-Men is like a whole
You want to see me pissed off? So at the end of the X-Men before this one, they tease out Mr. Sinister, one of literally my favorite and one of the best villains in all of everything. Next movie, Dark Phoenix, played by one of the worst actresses I've ever seen in my life.
Thank you. Sansa Stark
She's
is
so
not
beautiful.
great at acting, dude.
She's a terrible actress.
Yeah.
It's very like, she doesn't have a lot of range. She's great playing like the stuck-up biatch in Game of Thrones, but she's hashtag not my Jean Grey. Like, she's just not my Jean Grey. And I think the other thing is like, you can't do like Dark Phoenix without having that really deep cut like love triangle between her, Cyclops, Scott Summers, and Logan. Like, if you don't have that, like literally the cover is like Scott like shooting his crazy eye beams into the sky, holding her corpse. Like, it's supposed to be this like tortured love story, and they've got no chemistry. Like, it says like, she's still our friend. And I'm like, nah, man, she's your fucking love of your goddamn life. Like, literally, you're never gonna feel like when you stick your dick in Emma Frost, you are literally thinking of her for the rest of your adult life. Like, come on. How are you gonna sit here? She's our friend. Nah, dude, she is your everything. What are you doing? It's upsetting. Like, I don't know if I don't get passionate about a lot of superhero things. I don't think I'm going to be able to watch that movie. I think I'll probably like get angry and walk out like 20 minutes in, because X-Men is so close to my heart. I'm still livid about how much they fucked up Scarlet Witch. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to get over that. Like, where she like does this. I hate the actress. She doesn't have a consistent accent. I don't like the dumb things she does with her hands. I'm like, this is somebody that's like, what if mutants never existed? And kicks off extinction. So like, how the fuck, like the fucking center pin of House of M, like one of the most pivotal characters in the X-Men universe, and you hired fucking one of the Olsen twins sisters that nobody knows about.
Is that who she is?
Yes, shit. That's the only reason she got that movie. Because she happens to be related to famous people. She's worthless.
She's pretty famous too. I agree with you. But I feel terrible because I'm blanking on his name. The second you guys say it, I'll be like, oh yeah. Anyways, Magneto though, they finally did it right. That actor is fantastic.
Oh yes, Michael Fassbender.
Thank you.
Yep.
Fassbender.
Yeah, he's amazing. I
grew up in the comics in the game where he had white hair but was a ripped Cal Ripken type character. Like, just, you know.
Yeah.
That's my, hey, listen. If I swung that way, I'd swing hard. That is that's what I wanted. And I love the actor. What's his name? The Knight. Who played Magneto in the original X-Men movies?
Oh,
Ian McKellen?
Ian McKellen, yeah.
Yeah.
He's an amazing actor. Respect as all get out. But when he, like, came out, I was like, well, Charles, it seems we meet again. I was like, oh, Jesus. And they're like, they're doing battle. I couldn't get there. It was cool how they depicted him because he can control metal everywhere. So he's like, I love the fluff they did with that and the scenes they had. But he was supposed to be like Michael Fassbender, like a physically imposing guy that also, by the way, was one of the most powerful mutants and extremely intelligent. That was so cool. So I'm really happy with that. I like actually a lot of the actors except for Sansa. Whew, way off.
She doesn't have the gravitas on screen. You know how there's like some people that they just like suck up everything on screen when they're on screen? Like Leonardo DiCaprio. Like when you go watch Gatsby, he just like all the attention is like on him.
In a good way is what you're saying.
Yeah. Like in a good way.
Sansa again. I was like, you.
And I actually love that like Tobey Maguire is the narrator because there's scenes that he was in that I don't even remember that dude being in. And that's like good for that movie. Because like it's hard to sometimes like go toe to toe with these people. I feel bad for anybody that has to be opposite like Robert Downey Jr. I really do, because he is one of those people that just like all the attention, all the just right on him. You need like I think Famke Jensen, the first. I think she had a lot more going for her as Jean Grey. I really do. I think she had like a presence. She had that like ability to like kind of, and then Hugh Jackman and her on screen.
Yeah.
It was two people that could hold, because not a lot of people can go toe to toe with him as Logan. Like,
Yep.
it was really good. It was a really well balanced type of thing. And I don't know where from that they were like, let's get Salsa on here and have her do it. Like, who's like, we need to replace Famke, a literally timeless fucking beauty and marvelous actress. Let's get the girl who like the bitch in the north. And I'm like, what? Are you high?
I agree. She's a bad actress, but she is a world-class beauty as well. And that's why she's in a lot of these scenes.
No, she is beautiful. I won't say that. I won't say that she's not beautiful. She's beautiful. But she does not have like any range.
No, not yet.
Like, she's got no range.
Not yet.
At all. And that's a role where being pretty, like Emma Frost, yeah, just cast somebody pretty. Like, it's fine. But like, we're talking about Jean Grey. It can't just be somebody pretty. It's got to be somebody that's got like
I can't
power.
wait, because they already showed in the previews there's scenes of her being like, what's inside of me? And she's like hurling cars and crushing houses. And it's going to be like that. It's going to be like Jeff as Sansa. It's going to be like, the power is overwhelming. And they're going to be like, Jesus. And there'll be amazing CGI and tornadoes. And
my God.
Fassbender will walk in like, you've let her unleashed. And she'll be like, I've been unleashed.
You're so right, though.
It's going to be bad.
It would be. Can you imagine if they got like an actress like her to play instead of Kate Blanchett as Hela?
Yeah.
It would have been the same thing.
I've had this pet theory. If you watch Game of Thrones, you could actually add, if you just need to tag on about 3 seconds at the end of every one of her scenes, you could put a laugh track and it would kind of feel at home. The shit she says and the way that the characters have to describe scenes around her to give the scene gravitas is so funny, because they're like, Sansa, she's done some crazy shit, and Arya's like, she's the smartest woman I know. Should have been like a 3-second pause and then a like a laugh track, like, because it's like, where does that come from? Where do we go to? You're the smartest woman she's ever met. Like, what in the books, in the show? Where does that come from? Because Arya's supposed to be this like ethereal goddess of war at this point in time that speaks from a wisdom beyond her ages, but then she says that, and I'm like, dude.
Yeah. I mean, just like Lyanna Mormont, like laying into her in that one scene. It's so sad because like she's got like no, like her face is just like Lyanna's just roasting the ever living fuck out of her and Jon Snow, like this fucking kid, and she's just like, "That's a beautiful name, milady. It actually belonged to me, mum." You know, girl, she's roasting you in real life too, because this 12-year-old can act better than you. Like, literally, that little girl just like, you know, she's like, we have a saying here on Bear Island. She's got all this like fucking like gravitas, and she's like, Lyanna, 'tis a beautiful name, and she just has like fucking nothing. It's like, oh God, somebody needs to like throw her a fucking lifesaver and get her out of the scene, because girl, it was bad.
They did. It was Littlefinger for 3 seasons.
Basically.
It's true.
Every
That
time
being
she was
said,
about to talk,
Lyanna roasting the fuck out of people is like the only reason I just go back and watch the scenes where she's roasting people. Kang and the North. She's so ridiculous. That little girl is gold. I just can't wait to see her in 10 years, because you know she's gonna just be fantastic. Oh, she already is. God bless that little girl. I don't even know her name, but I'm gonna find out after this, because she's fantastic.
Good and very young. Well, anything to end on, Eric? You had any wrap-up thoughts? We did get off topic, but Endgame, you enjoyed it for what it was? Is that what you could say?
Absolutely. I loved it for what it was. Once again, 22 plus movies ending in a way with not feeling like, oh, thank God, unlike Game of Thrones and stuff. So it's like, you know, it's impossible. Like, I don't know. To me, I feel like that's the greatest thing Marvel has done so far. Is I don't know how they've been able to consistently not make Oscar-worthy movies, but just like solid summer blockbuster, like B movies, just over and over and over again, recycling basically the same plots over and over again, casting, acting. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible, and to see it all come to an end here, it's absolutely it's going to be something unforgettable.
Cool experience, right? In our lifetime too, like something that there hasn't really been a movie thing like that. That
No.
long of a streak of movies coming to an actual conclusion.
No.
Bronze, what about you? What are your final thoughts on Endgame?
It's gonna be hard not to cry. This is like end of an era, and I say this about Lord of the Rings a lot. I remember when the first Iron Man came out. It was right before I had a huge falling out with my family. And I used to have like a 7 o'clock curfew. And I remember being in the movie theater, seeing my mom's number like on my caller ID and being like, not today, bitch. And like I got in trouble because I was like 18 and like, no, I am sitting in this fucking movie theater and I am watching this fucking movie. And there was just so much, like, it inspired me so much. And I never thought in my lifetime we were going to get superhero movies on this scale. I never thought when I started reading like comics with Sandman and Why the Last Man and Preacher that it would lead to an era where we get movies made on this
Yeah.
scale. And I am blessed that my formative years, I got to witness my heroes come to life. This is in some ways our mythology. This is our Greek mythology. This is our pantheon. We see these people bleed. We see them uphold their values, and they inspire us to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And that's why I'm tearing up because I got to live at a time where Robert Downey Jr. was my Iron Man, and I'm very blessed for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
I don't. Yeah, I actually I like that it's a slow burn for me in the sense that I'm coming to grips with how cool and unique this experience was. For me, the movie that did this the most for me was Logan. Like I cried at multiple parts throughout that movie. I went and saw it again. I wanted to talk about it nonstop. I just like the impact a completely fictitious character can be had, played by an extremely privileged yet awesome Hugh Jackman. And it can have these like impacts. It's reminiscent, you know. We're entertainers ourselves. We're people that work in content production and stuff like that. So, the idea that talking and portraying and creating stories like that can have a bigger impact is very important to us. So it was really cool to see it on that scale. And I think I was just mostly really impressed because, like I said, this is not my genre. I really enjoyed movies, and I especially did the further back you go, I enjoyed them more. I enjoy things more closer to Logan from that, where it takes something you really like and it challenges it throughout it. That's just my preference. I'm not saying it's better or worse. But this movie, I went in and I was like, yeah, I was entertained. But then 2 days later, I was like, holy fuck, I still feel good about that. I'm thinking about this scene. I can see Robert Downey's eyes looking into Chris Evans. Like these scenes, like they stayed with me from such a otherwise completely silly movie, and I thought that was incredibly amazing. So I was really, really happy with it. I know that it sounds, if you watch this video, it's a little bit interesting because I criticize a whole bunch of it, but I criticize what I love, and I actually really enjoyed it. And kind of like Bronze, I disagree in the sense that it's like, what a time to be alive. That this movie, I don't even know what the end of budget was, right? 750 million or something ridiculous. Like these numbers we throw around, but everyone on the planet's going to see it or hear about it. Like this is a ridiculous time. It's amazing. And they own the world. So
Yep.
I thought it was amazing what they took on. But like I said, it's kind of I feel like it should have a little bit of a feel to it when I say, where do we go from here? How do you follow that up? Like, what movie is the follow-up? And I feel like it's got to be bold in the sense that it cannot be bigger. You can't even claim that to be the case. It just has to be like an encapsulated feel-good story. And that is Far From Home, I guess, right? With Spider-Man. I think that's the next one slotted.
I think it's time to tell smaller stories.
Yeah, which is totally okay. And I could probably enjoy it better, actually.
Get away from the crossovers, get away from this huge meta, and come back to like, I think Spider-Man will be the perfect kickoff because this is going to, Spider-Man deals with crime close to home. To a certain extent, when Daredevil came out, season 1, first of all,
so good.
But it came out at a time that we were dealing with, I think, some burnout in terms of like we had seen so many of these big grand movies.
Right.
And to get back to the nitty gritty of a dude fighting a gangster in his neck of the woods and all he's got is his fist and, teeth falling out and stitches. I think in some ways that's what we need now. We need like small, tiny, feel good stories and get back to like the root of like not throwing trains and destroying half of New York, but like small things and heroes being heroes in their own neck of the woods. That's my take anyway.
Hopefully, we'll see. I want Venom versus Spider-Man done right. Into the
Keep dreaming.
Spider-Verse.
Good luck.
I want that animation. We'll see. But yeah, well, thank you guys so much. Thank you to the audience. You guys were really lovely this entire time. Let's do some shout outs and close off the show, but we'll probably be back next week. I don't know what we'll discuss. We always don't, and we'll figure it out. But Eric, thank you for giving us your time. And I really, as always, we love the way you think, and I appreciate that if you disagree, you voice that. That's actually what we're hungry for. So thank you.
Oh, please. I'm super happy to be here again. You all are super, super, super generous having me on and letting me just bullshit for nearly 2 hours. It didn't even feel, it's incredible. I love hearing whatever you all have to say and giving me a chance to come here and share with mine. It's just, it's a dream. You two are super, super smart. And I respect you all's opinions so much. So, this feels like the conversations we would have like over dinner, you know, like just feels, it's such a good time. You know, it's like chilling in our living room or whatever and just hanging out. Like this is just the stuff we would talk about. Mm-hmm. I really like that. And I hope chat and stuff loves it as much as we do here. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. If you like what I say and you want to know more of what I do, mostly D&D stuff on Twitch now part-time, come see me over at Eric Vulgaris. I'm Eric Vulgaris everywhere. Do that stuff. Tonight I'll be streaming. I'm not sure, Jeff, you're doing Warhammer tonight? Yeah, cool. Well, if you don't want to do Warhammer, watch some weird psychedelic metal D&D. That's what I'm doing on my channel tonight.
Very cool. Thank you very much, Eric.
Yeah, thank
Bronze,
you.
what are you up to? What do you got going on?
Hi, hello. I'm that Bronze girl. I'm a variety caster. And I stream super early mornings on Twitch at 7 a.m. I usually chat for a couple hours in the morning. Sometimes it turns into like a whole thing. My stream is very much like me dissecting events in my life and things I observe and find to be comedic in some ways. So that's that. I had a great story for Jeff today.
Oh my
He
God.
loved it.
Don't.
He loved it. Don't let him tell you otherwise.
Very interesting conversations sometimes. And I do the same. Start talking about girls taking plastic hooves off and the smell that emanated from there. I can't.
It was very moist.
Oh, God.
I had to bring it back. So, yeah, that's me. You can find me everywhere as that Bronze girl.
The thing is, Bronze, I said this in our chat, she's a very good storyteller. And that is an actual skill. It's an ability. I would call myself one of those people as well. But it's funny because in my walks of life, no diss to my friends that aren't listening to this, but a lot of them tell stories, but not necessarily very well. When Bronze tells a story trying to convey this rancid smell she smelled from a girl walking around in goat cosplay, and like latex was involved and stuff like that, like I could smell it. I wanted to throw up. I was dying. And then like a good storyteller, she didn't end with the punchline. She kept going and drilling it into my soul. So yeah. Gave me a different perspective. Now after that, I was like, when someone's like, Jeff, that's gross, stop. I'm like, maybe I should stop. Maybe I'm actually... maybe this is affecting that person. Anyways. Oh, my roommate just texted me, he said, F you. I love Shane, he is one of those guys I'm talking about that's not a very good storyteller. But through my teasings and teachings, I'm trying to get him there. Anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I once again want to just say, I get a lot of feedback. I was just at a Warhammer tournament this last weekend, but I had like 4 people be like, watch your show, it's great. And they're not related to anything other than just if we tweet this out and put it on YouTube, some people watch it. And that's what we wanted. Like Bronze Eye, we like to talk about shit, and Eric's saying that this feels like sitting in a living room with your friends talking about stuff. Boom. That's it. That's the whole show. That's the entire thing. I got a message from a guy who's like, you're going to talk about a movie? Well, we'll see where this goes. And I was like, yeah, dude. And I think one day, like Eric, one of his topics he introduced was fashion. You ever think I would ever talk about fashion? Well, on this show, we might. Who knows? We could talk about anything.
We should do one of those panels where we judge other people's clothing and like assign it a value.
Yeah. Let's take the show to
We have
that
cards.
direction.
We have cards.
Wasn't there a show that they literally did that? They would just look at people's clothes and be like, was it like Fashion Police or something?
Probably.
They'd like stop people on the street and be like, girl, you look like shit. We could be those people.
So yeah, probably not that, but something we might end up talking about. Anyways, point is, we love talking, and thank you guys for listening. That's really cool. I think we're back next week. Eric may or may not be with us. We love having him, so we'll see. That's it as far as plans for the show. If you guys have topics, let us know. There's a Discord on the which is linked in the chat. You can just do !Discord, and you can go in there and tell us what you liked, what you didn't like. You can continue the conversations. Type it up on YouTube, whatever. It's fine. We'll see you guys next week. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.